The Dorkening and all affiliated shows are not intended for anyone under the age of 18. The following may contain discussions or scenes that have adult situations, graphic violence, nudity, strong sexual content, and graphic language. This show is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
Persons under 18 will not be admitted.
I'm choosing to ignore the cuts and bumps and bruises. I'm cruising through these haters, leave them looking stupid. They foolish if they think they'll ever hear my conclusion. I'm through with all these part-timers and their excuses. I'm bruising eagles left and right every time I do this. I'm shooting for the top, no I'll never settle where you did. The future's in my hands, my grip will never lose it. My crew is ready to obtain the absolution, removing any doubt that we was ever fooling.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another kick-ass episode of Still Toking with. You know who I am, and I gotta say I'm excited. I'm all excited about the show, but I'm really excited about tonight's show because we're welcoming back a past guest from season 1. This guy's the real deal. That's all I'm gonna say because I got to bring in the flashy one himself, Mr. Jeffrey Mark.
Hello, cats and kittens. Yeah, I'm excited too because we have with us today, golly, it's like having a conversation with a real life Aquaman. Besides his physical prowess, he's also a very brave individual. And I'm looking forward to getting to know him because the first time he was on the show several years ago, I wasn't a part of the show yet. So I get to be here with him for the first time. So without any further ado, would you please welcome to the show, Edd Sorenson.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Oh, welcome back. So, let me just see. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it's been 7 years ago we had you on for the first time.
I can't believe it's been that long.
Neither can I. I can't believe you're still doing what you do.
Still,
I mean, shit. 7 years ago, I was like, yeah, well, good. And now it's like I can't stand up in the morning. It hurts. For our viewers and our listeners who don't know who this amazing gentleman is, he is really the top cave divers, rescue and underwater recovery specialists in the world. And I don't say that lightly. You know, you've been doing this for how long now?
Almost 30 years.
Almost 30 years. And like, I don't know. I don't know how you can still do it.
You know, when the IUCRR was first formed, that's the International Cave Rescue and Recovery Team, I think it was 98, 99, somewhere in there. And it was, you had to be asked to be on. And I was, which was odd because I live in Florida now and I teach cave diving and cave instructors and rebreathers and all that stuff. But I was living in Oregon and there really are no caves or almost none. But we had, you know, there was flooded mines around anytime a bus or go down the water. It's an overhead environment. So I'd be called to go in because open water divers need open water above them. And anyway, we, a buddy of mine and I that were invited, we traveled to Florida for our training. But the training at that time, it was the guy who started it all, and he was ex-law enforcement. And he saw where most sheriff's departments or a lot of sheriff's departments have dive rescue teams and rescue and recovery teams. So when a fisherman comes in, you know, turns up missing, or a drowned swimmer or whatever, they're called and they go out and search the rivers and lakes or whatever for bodies, guns, whatever the case may be. Well, they found years ago in California, a couple of guys had gone in to try and salvage some stuff out of a car that was wedged in the U.S. River or whatever they call that man-made viaduct thing. And they ended up not coming back. And the sheriff's department dive team was called out, and the sheriff's department said, yeah, we're not trained for this. We're not doing this. Well, a fire department dive team was dispatched as well, and they said, we'll do it. And so everybody looked to them like, okay, they're the heroes. They're brave enough to do it. These guys wouldn't. So they went in. I believe there was 3 of them. They tethered themselves together because it was zero visibility, and they didn't come back. So then all the bystanders looked at the sheriff's department and said, now you've got to go get them. They said, now we're absolutely not doing this. That's why we didn't do it in the first place. We're not trained for that kind of an overhead. So a couple guys were called out of Florida, and one of them was this Henry Nicholson, who later on started the IUCRR. And that's why he started it, is they wanted cave divers that were trained to go into stuff like that had done body recoveries in zero viz, because most cave divers, when they get into zero viz, when things go horribly wrong and a lot of people perish, and it freaks them out. And if they do live through it, they generally quit cave diving after that. It's a horrific experience. And that's when we have to go in. So anyway, he put this team together, and I thought it was a noble cause. We're all volunteer. We don't get paid. We are not allowed to ask for money. I never would anyway. I do it as a public service. But I remember, I think it was late 99, and I was in Florida diving on vacation. And all of a sudden, this guy pops up about 30 feet away from me. And I was just waiting for my buddy to finish gearing up. And he said, help, help, help my wife. And, you know, inside, I just went, gotta go. And I hit the trigger on my scooter, the propulsion device, and I start zooming out there till I find her body. And on the way in, it clicks in the back of my head, you don't know what you're doing, because we didn't really get trained. All of our training was paperwork, how to fill out incident reports. The sheriff's department's in charge. You're just working for them. Mm-hmm. But we didn't do any mock body recoveries or anything. So I'm zooming in to the unknown thinking, you don't know what you're doing. But when I got there, I just figured it out. We got her out. I got her out. I was on shore. We got her up on shore, tried to do mouth-to-mouth and CPR, but she had been gone too long. So it didn't work out. But then I had my first body recovery. And my buddy who was on the team said, how did you know to do this? How did you know to do that? I said, I just figured it out when I got there. Then I got called for another body recovery, and every single one of them was different.
Right.
I started thinking, okay, how can I be better prepared? But then the second one was completely different. Third one's completely different. Next one's completely different. And I thought, there's no use having a plan when you don't know what you're going to be dealing with. You don't know what you're going to be coming up against. And the thing is most of the time, if you get to an accident scene, your eyes tell your brain what to do. Okay, now close your eyes and get to that same accident scene. Where are you even going to start? How are you going to find that person? Cave is not just a tube. We go down in there and there's rooms. There's a cave over here in Tallahassee, and one of the rooms is called the 747 room. The reason it's called that is because the room is big enough to put a 747 in there and drive a semi around it.
Wow.
So just imagine in zero viz trying to find a body. And then they're stuck, wedged, something. Now you've got to figure out what to do. And how do you do all of this without getting lost and perish yourself? So those are the kind of things that I thought, this probably would have been handy to know. But I just started, every time I just made it up as I went. I'd feel around, okay, he's stuck over here. This is hung up here. And in a cave, we have a very small line. I don't know if I have one around here, but it's less than an 1/8 inch diameter. They're very small. That line is the only thing that I have to follow to go home. So now we do what's called okaying the line. We just put our finger around it and we follow the line. Every time it's tied to a rock and changes direction, I have to figure out the new direction and go again. But now I have to do it while dragging a dead body. And when we go up, gas in the suit, the wings, whatever, is going to expand from the lack of pressure. When I go down, the gas compresses. So as we go down, they become more negatively buoyant or heavier. And as we come up, they're going to become positively buoyant. It's like trying to hang onto a balloon. So you have to figure all this stuff out while you're doing it. And then years later, a guy perished and his buddy made it out and said, he's stuck. I couldn't get him out. It's impossible. And the sheriff's department called me, told me what they told me. I said, I'll get it done. And I went in and did. It was difficult, but you do what you do. I just figured it out and I make it happen. Then a few years later, I think that was in 10, 11, I think, a guy came up missing, and no, it was 12. And the body recovery diver, the IUCR has a lot of divers, and they usually pick one that's closest to the vicinity of the incident. So there's a guy who happened to be the president of the NACD. I go with him a lot. He's a good friend, super great guy, really good diver. He was dispatched to go out and do the body recovery. He got to the victim, and the hole was about that big around. It was what we call a complete gear off restriction. So you have to take all of your dive gear off, shove it through the hole, go through the hole, put it all back on. If you lose the tank while you're going through, you're going to die. And that's what happened to the victim. He shoved his tanks ahead of him. He lost control of them. But when he turned around to try and get out, he lost his light as well. So now he's in zero viz, and he missed the small hole. There was a smaller hole up above that one. And he tried to, and when you're panicked, you do stupid things. Mm-hmm. he tried to shove his head through a hole that was only about that wide. And basically he jammed his head in and got stuck like a vice. It was just like somebody had cranked a vice down around his head. Well, he pushed so hard with his knees on the ground, there was a small crack between the rocks, and his leg went down between the crack. So now his leg's stuck at the bottom of the hole, his head's wedged at the top of the hole. And when Jeff went in to do the body recovery, he gets to the hole, and all he sees is the guy's wetsuit. And he's trying to push him out of the way, and he's stuck top and bottom. So he tried until he was out of gas, and then he had to come up, and the sheriff's department said, "Where is he?" He said, he's stuck. He said, "Okay, what do we need to get him unstuck?" He said, "It can't be done. It's impossible. His head's stuck on the top, his foot, and you can't get in to get him unstuck." And he said, "Okay, what do we need to do?" And Jeff said, "It's impossible. I just told you." And they said, "We got to do something. There's media down there, the TV reporters, the family." And Jeff said, "Well, you could wait a couple months and he will start to dissolve and come apart and we can get parts of him out." Yeah, that's not going to work. They said, "Well, this is a crappy little cave and nobody goes here anyway." And we had to take airboats out just to get there. It's in the swamp, alligators all around. And they said, he said, "We could just dynamite it closed because this is such a small opening, and that'll just be his tomb." Well, that word got back to the family, and they weren't having any part of that. And so they were asking him, "There's got to be somebody that can do this." And Jeff said, "Well, there's only one guy I know crazy enough to attempt this." And I happened to be in Orlando, and I was dropping off our fire chief at a Chiefs convention, and I was fueling up my plane, getting ready to fly home, when the call came in. And he told me, and I said, "Okay, I'll be there first thing in the morning." And so I went out there, and it was tough. I had to take a real small 3 mil wetsuit instead of my dry suit because the dry suit was too big. I had to take special, really small tanks that don't hold a lot of gas. I had to take what's called a no-mount harness. As you can see, I usually dive like this with what we call side mount. My tanks are on the side. And for cave diving, you have to have two. So now I have this no-mount harness that I can easily take off. And I go in and I see Jeff had actually tied a reel to the guy's hand. You can see his hand and this part of his chest. And I'm looking around, I'm like, yep, he was right. This is impossible. But one thing my dad taught me when I was very young and working with him, I asked him one day, I said, "Isn't it about time to go home?" He said, "I don't know. Are you done?" I said, "No." He said, "Then we're not going home. We'll go home when you're finished." That's when the job. And I'm in there thinking, he's still in there and I'm still out here, so I guess I'm not done. So I tried and tried and tried. By lunchtime, I had started at 6 a.m. By lunchtime, I had already gone through 3 sets of tanks.
Wow.
I was physically beat, exhausted. I was hungry. But I was looking, and there was a boulder on the side of him, on his left, my right. And I just looked between that boulder and his left side torso. And I saw that the cave dropped down into a big pit. And so I went up and I told the sheriff's department, I think if I had a pry bar and I could pry that rock loose, I could take off all my stuff, push it through the hole, come in around behind him, get him unstuck, and I think I can get him out. Now, one of the guys that lives close by there, that spot several times and mapped it and sketched it. He said, "You don't want to do that." He said, "This whole cave is breakdown. It's stuff falling." And he said, "If you knock that rock, that might be the one holding the one above it, and you'll be in there forever too. Don't do this, Ed." Well, the sheriff's department heard Ed needs a pry bar. So they zoomed there. They got a couple of pizzas, and they brought like 10 different pry bars. They must have raided Home Depot or something. They had every pry bar known to man. So I went back in with this 5-foot-long Johnson bar, and Matt, the guy that told me not to do it, he said, I'll go in and make sure you don't die. So he's behind me, and as soon as I started to pry that rock, a bunch of stuff broke loose, and it turned to zero viz, and I just immediately dropped on the floor, and I thought, oh, God, don't let me die. Don't let me die. Well, it only took a minute in the flow to clear out, and then I realized I had budged it. Yeah, this is going to work. So I go back to work. Now, I'm in a little small tube with a 5-foot bar. This is very difficult. I got no room to work. And all of a sudden, I'm prying, and shit keeps breaking. I keep going into zero viz, and I keep prying. And all of a sudden, I feel the rock move. I'm like, oh, I did it. I'm on the floor trying not to die again. And then all of a sudden, I see when it cleared up, I didn't knock the rock down like I had planned. It wasn't at the bottom of the pit. It spun around. Blocked 90% of what you could see. Now you can see this little sliver, and that rock wasn't moving. So the only way that he got in there, I just ruined. So I went up. Now I'm physically and mentally beat down, and I'm thinking, I completely botched this. I screwed this thing up. And I'm on the surface, and I'm just thinking. And the divers are going, you can't be done. And the sheriff's department will go, we got to get this guy out. Ed, what are we going to do? Ed, what's your plan? And I just went, stop. Leave me alone. And I sat there in silence. I ate my pizza, and I thought. And I thought, there's got to be another way in. These two guys that were there, they said, no, there's not another way. Well, I'm going to find one. So I went down, and I just looked all around this cave area, and it's all breakdown, like you said. And at one point, I get up, and I see there's a gap at the ceiling. And I swam up there, and I can see into that pit. So I took off all my gear, and I'm shoving it over the edge. Now, if I drop it, it's going to go, I'm at about 70 feet high here, and the floor is 95. So it's going to sail down 25 feet, and I'm going to die. So I'm shoving it through, and I'm really hanging on to it good, and I'm wiggling through it. I'm getting stuck and wiggling, don't let go. And I get through. And I put all my stuff back on. And I come up behind the victim, and now it's fairly clear in there. And so I figure out a game plan, and I get him unstuck. And I found another little slot that was only about this big, but I couldn't fit through it. But he was taller than me, but skinnier. And all he had on was a wetsuit because he lost his gear on the other side of the cave. So I get the body out. I lay him on the floor, and I'm thinking, okay, I got to slide through that slot. I go back out of the cave, get another set of tanks. I got these really small tanks. I tell the other two guys that volunteered to help me, I said, I'm going to need your help. I said, I'm going to make a harness that has a loop right here behind his head, and it's going to come around his armpit, back through the loop, around this armpit, back through the loop, and I'm going to stick the harness through the slot. You guys will be on the cavern side, on the safe side, and you'll both pull. Put your feet up against the rocks and pull. And I said, I'll be on the inside tucking, shoehorning this body. Now, many decades ago, there was a famous cave diver named Sheck Exley, and he had to do a body recovery. The guy was so bloated, he couldn't get him out, and he had to stab him to let the gases that were building up in his body out. Mm-hmm. Well, the sheriff's department said somebody murdered him. So we're supposed to bring them out in as good a condition as we can. But this guy's rigor mortis with his arms bent in a 90 degree. And his legs are bent the other way, so he looks like Zorro. And I can't fit him through a little slot, so I tell one of the deputies, I said, I'm going to have to break his arms. Well, I have to, otherwise he's not going to come out. And they said, no, I mean, not that you shouldn't, you can't. It's harder to break an arm than you think. I said, I think I can do it. I'm fairly strong. And I'm going to have him wedged in there like a vice anyway. I said, then when I get that done, when we get to the legs, they're going to be bent down like this. I'm going to have to break them. And it's not really breaking them. It's tearing all the rigor mortis cartilage. Anyway, right. So I get down there and I get this harness made up and I get it on him and I get the body up to the slot. Now I put him in like this, so he's face up, back down. And I throw the harness through, and there's a little slot I can talk to him. I'm like, I pull my rig, I go, pull! So there's pulling, and I'm tucking and shoehorning, and I'm pushing and wiggling. And he's slowly sliding through. We get to the arms. I said, stop! They stop, and they said this was the most horrific sound. And I get both arms done. And then I get one down, and as I'm working on the other one, I'm pulling down, and the other one comes back up, and it hits me from behind. And I think I screamed like a girl. I'm like, ah! But anyway, I got the arms down. I said, pull. So we're shoving. He's going. We get to the legs, and I'm reefing them up and making this terrible sound. And I, okay, pull. So they're pulling. And apparently on the other side, his head now slid out and he was looking at them. And they both freaked out. Even though they're supposedly IUCRR divers, they'd never actually done a body recovery. They both freaked out and just left. And I don't know this. I'm still in there pushing and the body's not going anywhere. And I pull my regulator out and I'm like, Paul! And then I'm looking, oh shit, there's nobody out there. So I had to get him out the rest of the way by myself. Then I had to go back in and get his tanks and all his gear rounded up, shove them. So it was a really long day.
Yeah.
Then there was another one at Vortex.
Wait.
Shoot.
Hang on 1 second. Let's ask a couple of questions here.
Why? I'm having fun.
What questions we got?
Just for our friends out there who are watching, who might just want to ask a couple of things. The
hell with them.
Hey,
go ahead.
That's fine with me too. Whatever you want.
I'm just teasing.
I want to hear the question. What do you got?
The kind of obviously great training you got, would that be similar to what like my friend Jacques-Yves Cousteau would have gone through to learn how to do everything you just talked about?
So Jacques Cousteau, remember, was just an open water diver. He really didn't dive caves. That was so long ago. Diving was really in its infancy. Jacques Cousteau was a huge, incredible pioneer in helping move scuba diving forward. But when we go into cave diving, it's a completely different animal. The distinction is what we call open water diving, and that means you have open water above your head. If something goes wrong, you go to the surface. In a cave, the one that's here in my backyard, when I moved here 25 years ago, it ended 4,500 feet from the opening, the only way in. So when you went back to the end of the line, if something went wrong, you had 4,500 feet to come out before you could go to the surface. Now I have that cave pushed back past 16,000 feet, 3+ miles. So it takes me, even with really go fast, expensive scooters, it takes me 3 hours just to get to the end of the line, then do whatever work I need to do, and 3 hours home. So it's a 6, 7, 8 hour day, and we have completely different rules. We have to have redundant everything. We have 2 computers, 2 tanks, 2 regulators, 2 or 3 cutting devices, 3 lights in case anything breaks. You've got to have. So cave diving is a completely different animal than what Jacques Cousteau did back then. He was one of my heroes. I used to watch him on TV all the time. Any other questions?
Yes. You are a man who is, I'm going to assume, over 40. How do you stay in such magnificent shape?
Well, if I turned the camera around, you would see I'm in my gym. So I built this warehouse for our online store for Cave Adventurers. But I made sure that I had almost 1,000 square feet of just gym. So my classroom's over there, and then I've got a Smith machine right here, a leg press machine, a calf raise machine, an inversion table, bench presses, a dumbbell rack back there that goes from 5-pound dumbbells all the way to 100 pounds, pull-up stations, dip stations, recumbent bike, treadmill, and stair stepping machine. So
it's a lot of work.
I'll be 67 in October, and I work out every single day. So I figure, people ask me, Ed, how long are you going to do this? I said, as long as the good Lord lets me. So I don't know if you guys know, because we haven't seen each other in 7 years?
Yeah, it's been about 7 years.
In March of 2022, I had a cough. I never go to the doctor, but Stacy, my wife, made me. And the ear, nose, and throat doctor looked down my throat, and he got these big eyes. And I said, well, that doesn't look good. He said, no, cancer, it's bad. I said, well, way to sugarcoat that, doc. So he did all these pulled biopsies, did all this shit, ran cameras down my nose. I'm there for an hour while he's poking, prodding, and doing shit. And then I said, okay, how long have I got? He said, maybe a month or two. He said, get your affairs in order now.
Wow.
You don't have long. And I always thought I was a big, tough guy. And tears started coming down my eyes. And I thought, I don't want to die. I've done all this incredibly dangerous shit my whole life. And now he's telling me I got 2 months to live.
Yikes.
So I immediately started, redoing my will, making sure everything was in Stacy's name, blah, blah, blah. Then 2 weeks later, he calls me in the office and he said, I think we can cure this. And they did. So that's the big news that's happened since then. I'm still here.
Yay.
And the funny thing is the lady, the physician's assistant that was there when he said I had maybe 2 months to live. I went in about almost a year later when they had cured me and I had severe radiation burns and everything, and they didn't know if I was going to be able to die. But I was alive. And she was there seeing me because I shrunk from 220 pounds down to 150, and I was trying to pull muscle back up. And she looked at me and she said, man, I can't believe I'm still looking at you. And she looked up and she said, he's not done with you yet.
Right.
And I've never been an overly religious guy. I mean, I was born into a semi-religious family. I was an altar boy. But I'm not a super religious guy. I know on several of the rescues that I did, I was searching in near zero viz. And one guy in particular, I had passed where he was. And it was like somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, you're going the wrong way. He's over here. And a couple of them that I've done that everybody thought was impossible, and I brought them out alive. I swear I had divine intervention. I had help. And now she says this, he's not done with you yet. You were put on the world to save people. And I said, okay, I'm okay with that. And it was 2 months later, after I finished radiation therapy and was starting to get back in the water. I was eating lunch, and my shop manager comes running into the lunchroom, says, we got to go now. I jump up. I'm like, okay, where are we going? And there was a diver trapped in the cave. And we knew him. He was a friend. And they said, Benny's stuck 900 feet back. But he was on a rebreather. So I thought, well, there's absolutely no way that I cannot save this guy. I mean, the rebreather's good for 7-8 hours. And he's only been in the water an hour. So we have everything set up at my shop where my stuff is always ready to go and it's in one spot. And they have a checklist on equipment. So when a call comes in, my truck is loaded and ready to roll in under 6 minutes.
Wow.
And so by the time I came from eating lunch from a sandwich, it's maybe 80 feet. The truck was loaded, tailgate was up, it was running, and my shop manager was in the driver's seat, and the passenger door was open. I jumped in, and we're hauling. It's only 1 mile to the park. And he's doing 100 down the road. And I looked up and I said, is this why I'm still here? Unfortunately, when I went in, he did not go out peacefully. He was stuck very badly. And he panicked and spit out his rebreather and had perished. So it was a tough body recovery because, one, I'm pretty good at what I do. And just to get him out a little bit, to get him into the main passage, I had to move him maybe 12 feet. It took me almost 18 minutes. And I'm usually pretty fast. But it took me an hour or so to get the body out. But he was a good friend too. So that makes it even that much more difficult. But
right.
That was odd that, she made that statement. He's not done with you yet. And 2 months later, I get a call to go rescue someone. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out to be my 7th. But anyway, we got him home and the family got closure.
Right. So I have a question. With the cancer and the diving, did that affect your ability to do the diving, or are you back like 100%?
I am now back 100%. When I first got done with cancer, the treatment, for one, when I got ready to start the treatment, they said that I wouldn't be able to dive or fly until it was done, and they'd look at it and see.
Right.
Well, they prescribed me hydrocodone for the pain, and I told them I don't do drugs of any kind, and they said, "Oh, you'll learn." And I had no idea, because I thought I was tough. I've had racing motocross, playing hockey my whole life, barefoot water skiing, mud bog racing, skiing down cliffs. I've probably had 35 broken bones, probably 200 stitches. And I never let them give me anesthetic or anesthesia or anything ever. I used to have my teeth drilled on with no Novocaine. I don't like shots. I don't like drugs, and pain doesn't bother me. So I thought this was a whole new realm of pain. So finally, one day I couldn't bear the pain anymore, and I told Stacy, "Okay, get me that stuff." I already did. It's in the bathroom. But it didn't work on me. So then the doctor prescribed me oxycodone because it was stronger, and I didn't want that because I'd heard horror stories about it. But I was in so much pain, I took it for a week, and it didn't work either. So then they put me on fentanyl, and then they told me to take the hydrocodone, oxycodone, and fentanyl. I'm like, "Are you out of your mind?" But I did because I was in so much pain for a week. It didn't work. So they said, the only thing stronger is morphine. I said, well, they gave me that when I was 16. That didn't work. So he said, well, you're on your own. So when I got done with all the treatments and everything, I asked the doctor, when can I start flying and diving again? And he said, Ed, we never did anything that would stop you. I said, what do you mean? You told me I couldn't. He said, well, that was because you would be on drugs. He said, you wouldn't take them. So he said, do whatever you want. So I started flying again, and I went to go to the water, but I wear a dry suit. The dry suit feels tightly around your wrists to keep the water out, and tightly around your neck, and you zip yourself into it. So the first day I'm going to go back, I take my head instructor with me, and I said, because I had a really dry throat from all the radiation burns, and I said, just make sure I don't die. He said, gotcha. So we're suiting up, and I jumped down off the picnic table, and he's like, and I went, what? And he goes, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. And I said, what is it? He goes, well, Ed, he said, you usually wear a compressed neoprene dry suit that fits you like, well, to be perfectly honest, he goes, it looks like you have a superhero costume on. You can see all your muscles through the suit. And he said, now it looks like you're wearing your dad's suit because I jumped down so much.
Right.
He said, I'm really sorry for laughing. I said, no, that's cool. I said, I'm just happy I'm still here. So we got in the water, and the neck seal was about this loose. So I flooded badly. But I dove, swam around, had fun. And the doctors all told me, because I was 63 at the time of that. And I said, I've been bodybuilding for almost 50 years. I said, I know how to do this. I said, but I've atrophied down from injuries in the past many times, but I come back quickly. I said, I'm not coming back. And I said, then it dawned on me, Doc, 200 days without food, my body ate all my muscles for food. And he goes, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I said, so I'm not trying to hypertrophy. I'm not trying to expand them back up. I'm starting over. I said, this is going to take a while. And he said, no, Ed, it's not coming back. And I said, excuse me? When you built all that muscle, you were 20 and 30 years old. You've been maintaining it all this time. He said, now you're 63. Your body doesn't work that way anymore. And I said, oh, yeah? Watch. So that was my goal then, to prove him wrong. So since then, I never did get back to 20, but I'm back to about 205, 208. And
Right.
I'm not as big as I was, but I'm working out every day trying to continue proving him wrong.
I saw the smile, Mr. Mark.
Yes. What is the difference, Ed, between a dry suit and a wetsuit for those of us who are a little confused?
Okay, excellent question. So a wetsuit is what most people wear, and you have they're generally made of neoprene. And you get into them and zip them up.
Right.
And when your body wants to be 100 degrees or 98.6, and when you get into water that's around here, it's about 70 degrees. Hawaii, 75, 80 degrees. Back in the Northwest where I learned to scuba dive, it's like 39 to 44 degrees.
Right.
So that water is constantly scrubbing away your body heat, and then you'll get hypothermia and die. So what a wetsuit does is it keeps the cold out, but it's wet. So water goes in, and then the neoprene holds that layer of water. Your body naturally heats that water to 98.6. Then the thicker the wetsuit, the more it'll keep that outside cold away. So they have like 3 millimeters of thickness, 5, 7, 8, 10. So those, you're wet, but hopefully pretty warm. With a dry suit, it has a seal around your neck and seals around your wrist. And then you have a layer of air between your 98.6 degree body and the cold. And your body heats the air up, but you're warm and dry as opposed to warm and wet.
Is there a preference for one over the other?
So a wetsuit is easier to dive. A dry suit is much more difficult because remember, when you go underwater, there's pressure. When you go down, right now you're in one atmosphere of pressure. That's what's keeping you on the ground. So we're at one atmosphere of pressure against our bodies. When we go down 34 feet in freshwater or 33 feet in salt water, every 33 feet, we are at one more atmosphere. So eventually that pressure will become so great. If you remember the Titan sub that tried to go down to the Titanic?
Right.
The pressure just imploded it. It just turned everybody to liquid instantly. So the deeper we go, the more pressure against your body. So when you have air in your suit, when you start going down, it's compressing that air. And the dry suit will start to squeeze you like you're in a vice. And you have to add air to it. So the deeper we go, we have to keep adding air to it. When we start coming up, now that air is going to expand. So if we have a super thin layer around our body, which would only be about maybe that much gas or less, as we come up from 100 feet, that would be the size of a Volkswagen. That's how much it would expand. So when you're diving, you're constantly going up and down. So in a wetsuit, it doesn't matter. In a dry suit, that gas is constantly expanding and compressing.
So help me to understand, then why would anyone want the dry suit?
Because it's much warmer. Much warmer. I dive a dry suit every day of my life.
And while we're at it, I mean, you tell your stories brilliantly. I mean, you really give us everything we need to know. Why are divers? Hi, Lila. I love you.
Can you say hi to everybody?
Hi.
Hi.
Is that a face or is that a face, Ed?
That's cute.
Why are there so many divers losing their lives? Why are they choosing to go into places that are so dangerous when there must be so many caves that are wide enough for them to go in, even if they have no visibility, and do it safely?
Well, the problem isn't the size of the cave. The problem is the training. People, reporters, podcasters, movie people always ask me, this is so dangerous. Why do you do it? And cave diving is not dangerous at all. It's a very, 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 very safe sport with good training. It's a very unforgiving sport without. And those people that just perished in the Maldives, again, they kept saying she was professional. She was experienced. She was very experienced. Okay, she was a very experienced open water diver. I am a very experienced pilot. I have a lot of hours in my plane. I would never think of jumping in a 747 and taking you up for a ride. We would not come home. I could get us up there.
Right.
That would be the last thing we do. So,
Right.
I don't have that experience. So I am a pilot. I'm not that kind of pilot. The difference. So those, as experienced as they were, and that's the problem these days, all the time. There's a spot that we train over here called Vortex. And it's very popular with open water dive instructors teaching their classes. Now they have a cave there. I've had to do some body recoveries there. That's the famous Ben McDaniels one where he just blah, blah, blah. So there, I see open water divers taking their students in there. So those students aren't even open water divers yet. They're still open water diver students, and they're taking them in a cave. And this is what I do for a living. And I'm like, do you know it's not about you. If you want to risk your life, you can do that. You can't risk those kids' lives.
Right.
And that's what they're doing. But then you hear, just like you heard over there at the Maldives, oh, they do it all the time. We've done it all the time. We do it all the time. It's okay. That's, there's a saying for that. Normalization of deviance. It's always okay, right, till it's not okay.
Right.
Cave diving that I teach, and that's the other thing, is notice I said with good training. unfortunately, all this training out there isn't necessarily good. There's an old expression: good training ain't cheap, and cheap training ain't good.
Right.
But I see a lot of instructors that wouldn't pass my class, but they got a card that says they're an instructor and they're getting sued. So I'm busy all the time because people know my reputation. They know I'm hard on my students. My standards are extremely high. But the people that have wives and kids and need to go to work tomorrow and they don't have time to be dead, they usually come and give me a call. Because
why aren't there stricter? Why aren't the standards at your level for everybody? Why does whomever gives out certificates not demand? You're making the money sign here.
there you go, you got it. So training agencies, even though I love them, and then some of them watch, I'm probably going to get nasty phone calls tomorrow. But it's all about cert cards. They need you to be pumping through cert cards. Come on, we got to get this going. If this instructor is not doing a good job, yeah, but he's putting a lot of certs through. We got to keep him rolling. And a lot of them, it's just, in fact, I'm the safety director for the NS Society cave diving section, and I have been for decades. And every year we have what's called an NSSCDS International Cave Conference. People come from all over the world to attend this, and it was just last month, a couple weeks ago, and every year there's a theme to the conference. It was about 2011 or 12, I think, and the theme was degradation of training. They even realized that the training had gone downhill. I don't know if you guys are old enough to know what a Xerox machine was.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, heavens to Betsy, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so a Xerox machine, you always had to have a master, and that made the copies. The copies were a degraded version of the master. If you lost the master and you took a copy and you made it, then you lost that. You took a copy of the copy of the copy. By the time you got 10 copies down the line, people were going, what the hell is this? Because unfortunately, the standards are too low. For one, you only need 100 cave dives to start your cave instructor. I know what I knew at 100 dives. It wasn't enough to teach you properly. I can guarantee you that. So then they're trying to whiz through everything now. I don't want to spend that much money. I want Billy will do it over here in 8 days. And that guy over there Ed wants to do 2.5 months. I don't have that kind of time or money. Then don't. But you get X amount of training. How much of that are you going to remember? Then they start, we'll just do it. And then they start making their own stuff up. And now some of the cave classes I see, I just shake my head and go,
well, I'll be recovering those bodies later.
Yeah.
That's why I quit teaching years ago. And that's why I started again in about 2009, was because I saw the degradation of training. And I thought, used to be a long time ago, most of the people we put in body bags were open water divers that shouldn't have been there, like the Maldives thing. Mm-hmm. Open water divers that should never have been in there. They didn't know what to do when shit went wrong. Most of cave training isn't about cave diving. You could put on a scuba tank and a mask right now and go into the cave. There's no law that says you can't. And you'd probably be just fine. But I don't know how about you, but I don't like to gamble with my life. It probably isn't good enough for me. I want to know, most of cave training isn't about cave diving. Most of cave training is about dealing with stuff when the shit hits the fan. That's what cave training is about. Can you survive when the viz goes out? Can you survive when you lose the line? All these things that they didn't know. So that's why it's a very safe sport with good training. So if anybody out there wants good training, seek it. There's a lot of good trainers out there. But unfortunately, there's a lot that just see you as a dollar sign.
And we have friends and fans
with you, get you out the door and get the next guy in.
We have friends and fans all over the world watching live and later. From your point of view, where are the best places in the world to go and do the cave diving?
Excellent question. So many decades ago, when I decided to get cave certified, a friend of mine, remember I was living in Oregon at the time, a friend of mine and my main dive buddy had already gotten cavern and intro. There was 4 classes back then: cavern, introduction to cave, cave apprentice, and full cave. He had already done the first 2. And he came to Florida, did that, went home. He was going to come back and finish. Well, I had a subscription to Scuba Diving Magazine, and I saw these pictures of Mexico, the beautiful stalactites and stalagmites. And I thought, wow. And I told my buddy, I'm going to Mexico get cave trained. He said, no, you're not. You're going to Florida. And I said, I have money to go wherever I want, and I want to go to Mexico. He said, no. He said, it's easier there. It's much harder in Florida. He said, you train where it's hard, you vacation where it's easy. He said, look at us. We learned to dive in 39-degree, crappy visibility water with big, heavy suits and dry gloves. And when we go to Mexico or the Bahamas, we look better than their instructors. He said, but if their instructors come here, they look like a fish out of water and don't know what to do. That was the best advice he could have possibly gave me. I went to Florida. I found a really good instructor. She was very tough. I'm still friends with her to this day. Last year, we were down, she lives down in High Springs area, and we went paddling with a bunch of us. And she was there along with us. But that was the best advice I got. And after I cave dived for 2 or 3 years, I went to Mexico to see those spots that I'd seen in this magazine. And I went in the cave and I went, oh my God, this is easy. So I was really glad and that's a great spot. I think everybody should go to Mexico and go cave diving, but I think you should go where it's hard to train.
Outside of Mexico, are there other places around the world you can recommend?
The Bahamas, there's some great caves in the Bahamas. Freeport has some really nice caves. The absolute best, there's like 700 islands in the Bahama Island chain. But Abaco, Bahamas, especially Marsh Harbor, Abaco, there's a guy there. His name's Brian Kakuk. He's a very good friend of mine. He's like my brother. And he has a shop like mine over there. And they're called the Crystal Caves of Abaco. I've been cave diving all over the world. And there's nothing as beautiful as the Crystal Caves of Abaco. And Brian is the only guide on the entire island. And they're guide only because these caves are so highly decorated and so incredible. And it took millions and millions and millions of years for these things to grow, and they'll never grow back. So he protects that thing like a small child. So that's probably hands down the best. If you're a certified cave diver, and you've got to be good because it's so decorated that he takes you on a try dive first to see how good you are. And if your fundamental skills are not good, you're not going to see the really cool stuff. So you need to be a good cave diver. And then Mexico has fantastic caves. There's a lot of really cool caves in the south of France. But I don't think there's any caves, and there's a lot of great caves all over the Bahamas. But the Crystal Caves of Abaco are probably the best in the world, in my opinion.
Nice. So we're coming up on time, so I do have an actual question for you. Now that summer is here, the summer months are here, people are vacationing all over the world, beaches. We know how women and people love beaches. What advice do you have for people vacationing that say, because you have caves underwater, but you see caves above water, sometimes are dry, but can fill really quick. What piece of advice do you have for these vacationers with the summer months coming about these caves?
Excellent question. When those guys got trapped in that cave, those kids got trapped in that cave in Thailand, several years ago, the coach should have known. He was local to that area, and it was just starting monsoon season, and that's what happened. They hiked back in there, and then the monsoon came and flooded the cave, and they needed to be rescued. Now, if you look at these Laotians that were trapped, they weren't that far from, it's kind of Laos, Cambodia, Thailand. It's all that right there in the same spot. And it was 1 month earlier or 1 month later, but just several years. So it was the start of monsoon season again. So they picked the worst time, and apparently they were told not to do it because of monsoon season. But you have to think those people are very, very, very poor. And when you have nothing, risking your life to go provide for your family they don't see it as risking your life. They think of it as being a good provider. They thought that it was worth the risk, apparently, and two of them paid the ultimate price. So, just watch the weather. That's happened in Mexico. That's happened in Texas. Several places where people have gone in and the floodwaters hit, and it becomes a life and death situation very quickly. Good question.
Right. So basically, know your surroundings.
Yes.
Pay attention to the
weather.
weather.
Go in, find somebody that has local knowledge. Ask them what's the weather forecast. How far am I going? If you're going to go in very far, you should have a guide anyway. You can get lost in those caves, and then you've got another problem.
Right. And then they got to call Ed.
Yeah.
And if they're going to call Ed, you better hope you got someplace you can sit. Because if not, he's breaking shit to get you out.
I'm here.
Just saying. That's how it works. We are a little over time. So, Mr. Mark, do you have any last questions for this amazing guest?
Yeah, I have a curiosity. For those of us who have visited places like Luray Caverns or Carlsbad Caverns that are dry caverns, and they're amazing. If you've never been, folks, go look, because it's incredible. But will a diver see things in a wet cave that one won't see in a dry one?
Well, yes and no. So there's a lot of different passages. If you look in most dry caves, you might be crawling through this section, and then you come to huge rooms. Up in Tennessee, there's some amazing waterfalls in these caves. So they're very much the same, very much different. When you have a 200-foot drop in a dry cave, you're going to be doing a lot of rappelling. You're going to be belly crawling on the bottom. When you get to the bottom, you're going to encounter, you're going to get dirty. You're going to get scuffed up. You got to wear a helmet. When we're cave diving, we come out nice and clean. An hour ago. So I'm still sparkling clean. It's our drinking water. So I'm basically diving in our aquifer. But a lot of the dry caves, like we've got dry caves here, Florida Cavern State Park's really cool. They have the stalactites, the stalagmites you can go through, and it's a great tour. But all the caves around here, the completely water-filled caves, have no speleothems in them. So there's no stalagmites, stalactites. It's just different rooms, different size passages, branching off all over the place. It's just that adventure of what's around the next corner. So they're both great. It's just, what are you into?
Thank you.
There you go. So, folks, if you want to know more about Cave Adventures or Ed, just check the show notes up above, down below, depending on where you're watching or listening to us. His information is there. And with that being said, Ed, where do you like to interact with your fans on social medias? Like, do you prefer Facebook? Do you prefer Instagram?
So I'm old and I just have a Facebook page. Cave Adventures has a Facebook page. Edd Sorenson has a Facebook page. A lot of people reach out to me there. I think I have an Instagram that one of the young kids that worked for me started, but I don't even know how to log into it. Password with him when he left. But a lot of people call the shop. On my business card, it has my cell phone number. I allow that to the whole world. So some people just call me. A lot of times, people that have seen a lot of the movies, Jonathan Bird's Blue World, Gus and Woody from Dive Talks. One customer said, you always have, this is a scuba tank water bottle. They said, you always have that water bottle with you. Every movie I've ever seen, you have that water bottle with you. And it's because of the cancer and the radiation burns. I have dry throat, so I have to drink all the time. So one of the movies I did a long time ago on the guy I rescued up in Tennessee, when we talked about it, they were waiting for me to get there. The guy had been trapped in the cave for 27 hours. He was one of the ones that saved those kids in Thailand. They were touted as the rescue team in the world. Anyway, when I was talking to them, the sheriff looks at me like I'm the Messiah. He goes, okay, what's your plan? And I said, I don't have a plan. And he was like, oh shit, did we get the wrong guy? But I told him, I said, I've been doing this for 30 years. Everyone's different. I go in and I make a plan. Well, somehow that we started having people call up and they said, can I buy those water bottles at your shop? Yes. Will Ed sign it? I don't have a plan. So that became kind of a phenomenon. People would buy those water bottles and they would have me sign it. I don't have a plan. Edd Sorenson. Or dive safe. Edd Sorenson. So yeah, they can reach out. They can call the shop. They can call my cell phone. They can look me up on Facebook. A lot of people come by all the time and just to say, hey, I was driving by and I wanted to come say hi. Can I get a picture with you? Sure. Will you sign this? And I'll talk to them for a while and they'll go, you're really a nice guy. We thought you'd be all conceited and stuck up, but you're really nice. So yeah, I love interacting with people that come by to say hi.
There you go, folks. If you're in the Florida area, stop by Cave Adventures. Say hi. Get a water bottle. He'll even sign it. Absolutely. I'm just saying.
Thank you guys for having me again. I love talking to you guys.
Yeah, well,
sir, you're a hero. It is an honor to know you.
Yeah, there's not a lot of people out there. Let me rephrase it. There's a lot of people out there that cave dive, but there's not a lot of people out there that are world-renowned experts at cave diving, rescue, and recovery. And you are one of them. And I really felt that, like I said before we went live, 7 years ago, we had no fucking clue what we were doing on this type of a platform. And the interview was okay. And I'm like, this guy, he's somebody that I really need to bring back to the show, to a bigger platform for more eyes to see, because it's a serious issue. And we covered that issue today, where open water divers think that they're cave divers, or you go into a cave because, oh, hey, look, it's dry. Let's go check it out. And boom, the tide comes in. Now you're stranded. You're stuck, or worse,
And I can tell you firsthand, Jacques-Yves Cousteau would have been honored to shake your hand.
I would have loved to have done that. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on again, and it was fantastic talking to you again. And
absolutely,
do it again one day.
Yeah, so Mr. Jeffrey Mark, same question I had for Ed. Where can people find you?
On Facebook, Jeffrey Mark, as it is spelled below here. For those of you who are not watching but listening, it's GeoffreyMark. And if you like to be on Instagram, it's Jeffrey Mark Showbiz, all one long word. Find me in those two places. You can also find me on another show, which Ben produces for me. GPE, Jeffrey Mark Plays Ella. Every week we play the music of the great Ella Fitzgerald on a theme, and I give you insider stories about the music and the songs, and of course, Miss Ella herself. So, or just Google Jeffrey Mark, and 9 million things come up, and we can talk about any of them.
Excellent. We want to thank Ed for taking time out of his busy schedule to shed some light on the dangers and the fun of cave diving. We want to thank you for doing what you do. Absolutely. To all our veterans and first responders, we want to thank you for doing what you do so people like us can come up here and do what we do.
Absolutely.
Stay safe in the summer months out there, and we'll see you all next week.
God bless and have a happy.
We're out of here. Bye.
Have a good night.
So come on.